in your great town.
That's great.
You know they're going to Sweet 16 Friday night at Macon.
They have the longest standing winning streak in NCAA.
Correct. Good morning. The time is 8:12, and we will now call the PlanRVA Executive Committee meeting to order. It is March 9th, 2023. I welcome everyone here. Thank you for being here. Ms. Firestone, I'll ask if you'll call the roll.
Yes, sir. Charles City County, Mr. Coda.
Here.
Why are you not here? I'm sorry, sir. Please forgive me, Mr. Chair.
That's bad. Point of personal privilege.
Chesterfield County, Mr. Winslow.
Yeah, but
City of Richmond, Dr. Newbill.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Spoonhour. Mr. Waters.
He's on.
Charlie Waters is here.
Thank you. Hanover County, Chair Davis.
present.
Henrico County, Reverend Nelson. Newcastle County, Ms. Page.
I'm here.
Powhatan County, Vice Chair Byerly.
Here.
And Town of Ashland, Dr. McGraw.
Here.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance, and we do have a quorum.
Let the record reflect, we have a quorum. And item number 2 is a request for approval of minutes. Have all executive committee members had an opportunity to review the minutes? Are there any changes, additions, or deletions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Dr. Newbill?
Second.
And we have a second. Ms. Page, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item number 3, have a discussion, and we'll kind of open this up. In Hanover, we call it workshop format, where you don't have to go through the chair. We'll just open it up to general discussion. As it relates to meeting times, Dr. Newbill had raised a question at the last meeting. I think it was appropriate. And I'll ask Martha to talk on this a little bit, but there was some talk about considering alternate meeting times for the committee and even the full. Dr. Newbill or Martha, you want to give a little background on what your thoughts might be? Because I'm open to this too. I think it's important we talk about this because there's been some desire to look at this.
It was just in response to, I think at that time, we had people who were still in routes at the 8 o'clock time, and so I thought that maybe pushing it down a bit would better accommodate, but.
I think so too, just the nature of where we're located and where folks are coming from and getting into the traffic here in the city. I mean, you look at the boardroom, I mean, it's probably the best view in Richmond, right? I mean, this is great, but it does come with some challenges as we get into some of the traffic. No deference on my part, but I'm not opposed to moving it to 8:30. Does anybody have any discussion on that? And of course, I guess.
Mr. Chairman?
So yes, sir. I
I think the view would be a lot better around 8:30 or 8:45.
That sounds like a motion. Anyone else? So would because we have public disclosure and meeting requirements, should we do this on a vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is that a motion?
Yes, sir, 8:30.
Is there a second? We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And then, Mr. Gregory, can the executive committee, I guess we'll push back the commission meeting as well, or discuss that. Can the executive committee make that decision, or should we take that to the full? I feel like we should take it to the full commission, but.
Yes, sir.
And then have them vote on the full commission meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll do that.
And then the
If for some reason they turn that down, we're gonna have to slim down these executive committee meetings. Just so you know.
All in planning.
Yeah, so, okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much. I see staff smiling. So, item number 4 is the health insurance update. You know, this drug out a little bit, but not because of any lack of planning. I think some of it hit the holidays, some of it hit our enrollment period, which happens, you know, these things have hard stops, but it was a pretty good presentation, although the folks were kind of pushed a little bit, but there's still some exploration from staff. I think the Gallagher team, we're still kind of waiting on some follow-up. right,
You
so I'm
wrote
gonna
me
turn it
this
over to
morning.
Mrs. Schickle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually heard from the Gallagher representative, or first thing this morning, he advised me that they are moving forward with a launch in 2023. However, it will be with an October start date, which falls outside of our window for enrollment. And so that would essentially mean if we wanted to get in 2023, we would not be able to offer health insurance for 3 months, which obviously does not work for us. So we would be invited to consider this to join the Virginia Health Insurance Program in 2024. So my recommendation, especially when Mr. Davis and I spoke earlier in the week, the local choice enrollment period is upon us. Open enrollment is May 1 through 16 this year. And we are required, I think, by April 1st to submit our intention to proceed with that program. We were notified last week, I think it was, that our premium costs for this coming year are remaining flat. So no change over this year, which is good news. A little surprising, quite honestly, but we'll take it. And so our recommendation is that we continue with the local choice program for fiscal year 2024 and can continue to explore other options, whether that be this new Virginia HIP program after it launches next fall, or we could also consider open bidding if that's something that the executive committee directs us to do.
So TLC is a local choice with flat premiums and still the employee base is accustomed to how that program operates. We always want to provide, competitive opportunities for for the organization. But with flat premiums and the enrollment time, and with VHIP, which is Virginia Health Insurance Program, not aligning, this isn't a matter of convenience. I think if there was a deficiency in TLC, we would have to make some changes, or at least have some different discussions. But since the premiums are flat and we don't kind of line up with VHIP, this seems to be the reasonable choice. But again, that's just one person's opinion. But anybody have any discussion on that? Ms. Schickle says, essentially the employee basis.
And I mean, typically the board doesn't take action, the executive committee nor the board takes action to initiate our re-up, so to speak, with TLC, but because we were in this exploratory phase, I felt like we wanted to keep everybody on awareness of where we are in that process.
And I've got no problem passing it on to Mr. Byerly, so that'd be a great thing. But just a concurrence of head shakes, maybe? I think that's legal, right? We don't, since we're not making a decision to do anything, we're essentially, yeah.
Just a question,
Yeah,
so
please,
the
ma'am.
premium remains the same as well as the level of coverage?
For this year, yeah.
That's incredible.
We still have, it's interesting. I've gone through at kind of a high level, and I know Dan and Diane are also reviewing it, but there are a couple of changes, but they're not applicable to us. They're more applicable to some of the plans that we're not a part of. The changes that are happening for this coming year, and there are some changes that they're making to retiree health insurance, but I don't see those being an impact for us because of how we already operate our program. So
Ms. Page, any questions, ma'am?
No, sir.
Doc,
Good questions?
Mr. Vice Chairman?
All good?
Okay, anything else? All right, so we'll have a minute say that there was a concurrence just to continue with TLC. No decision was made to make a change. Item number 5 is the annual work program priorities. We've got 5 things on there. 3 of them are of significant importance. All of them are important, but I'm going to ask Ms. Schickle to go over those and really dig deep into the regional strategic plan, the federal funding as it relates to infrastructure, and then Title VI with compliance and public outreach. Not that they're not all important, she'll hit all of them, but those were the 3 that were of significant importance to me and probably need a little bit deeper dive. So, Martha, thank you.
Thank you. This is really just an opportunity to kind of, with the chair's permission, sort of workshop ideas for next year's work program. From a timeline perspective, our intention is to bring to the full commission with a final recommendation for approval the work program and budget at your May 11th meeting. So we're in the beginning phases this month and starting this. The TPO is on a parallel process with a target of having approval of the Unified Planning Work Program for the transportation side of the organization approved in April. Finance Committee will be meeting on the 24th to be able to review the budget. And so we just wanted to be able to take a couple of opportunities to talk with the executive committee about priorities, kind of high level things that you'd like to see for the organization to move forward. And then also so that we have time next month to talk about staffing implications. So, when we have an understanding of the work that we want to undertake, how do we make sure that we have the staff capacity and resources to do that work? And if not, how do we reconcile those two? So as Chairman Davis indicated, I made a short list of kind of 5 key priorities that I felt like from a work program perspective are moving forward and staff have interest in presenting to you. So as he said, regional strategic plan, the commission heard from Sherry Armstrong and Brian Anderson from the Chamber, Community Foundation and Chamber in November about this regional strategic planning effort that the 3 organizations, PlanRVA, Chamber RVA, and Community Foundation are spearheading to really be able to create a framework for economic opportunity and mobility across the region. We have great interest in continuing to pursue that. Mr. Parsons' presentation last month with scenario planning, I think, is a really nice alignment to that regional strategy so that we can really make sure that from an infrastructure perspective, we are moving in the direction that is kind of best for the region and contemplates those various scenarios that might occur over the next 30, 40-year time horizon. So that's one kind of big bucket area that is frankly encompassing of all of our program areas, and we want to make sure that as we write the work programs for the different grant priorities, they're moving in alignment to be able to have that regional plan. This initiative, I will also mention, helps us to achieve compliance with the state. The General Assembly requires that planning district commissions across Virginia shall prepare a regional strategic plan, and they may cover various topics, but the list is anything from economic development, affordable housing, health, criminal justice. I mean, it's the whole gamut of anything that one could imagine might be in a strategic plan. And so, of course, our 4 focus areas are community development, emergency management, environment, and transportation. So I'll take a pause there for a minute and just ask if anyone has any questions, concerns, particular maybe desires for if and how we move forward with that particular effort.
Just a quick question, in terms of the partners, GRP, are they at the table?
Yeah, we've been
Okay.
working a lot with Jennifer on this, and I
Okay.
think, one of the things is trying to figure out particularly how, in the areas that are most effective for promoting the region externally, how do we make sure that we're singing from the same sheet of music? So I know that Greater Richmond Partnership and Richmond Region Tourism have been working on kind of that external branding effort, and I'm imagining, I think Sherry and Brian and I are in agreement on this, that external messaging and branding, really is the beacon, and then this regional strategy is kind of what sits underneath of that to make sure that we're living up to who we say we are and how we operate. But yes, very much, and Jennifer Wakefield has been at the table for a handful of conversations, and we think that she's a real key partner in this effort.
And was housing,
Housing is at least at this juncture, identified as a key kind of pillar
Okay.
of the plan. So I don't think that is set in stone at this point, but we're thinking about housing, infrastructure, transportation, broadband, sort of those hard tools, if you will, health, job creation, workforce, not quite sure how to parse that continuum out, of course, education, and there's sort of a community bucket just with engagement and making sure that there's, kind of a vein of inclusiveness around the region.
one more question, under housing, homelessness?
Part of the
Is that a
continuum,
component?
absolutely, yeah, so at this point, our logic is that we're leaning on the intermediaries or the lead entities that kind of drive these particular program areas or pillar areas. So in the housing pillar, Homeward and Partnership for Housing Affordability are kind of the lead entities that are, so leaning into the existing work that's happening with Homeward and the continuum of care, and partnership for housing affordability with the regional strategy or regional housing framework and being able to drive those forward. Sure. Similarly, I would say the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization is kind of that identified lead entity with CVTA on the transportation side and so on and so forth. So we're playing a role at the kind of regional strategic plan level, but also as one of the lead entities in the pillars.
So as it relates to housing and affordable housing, where I see our role and maybe assistance to the localities is the different challenges that each locality has and of course the different needs. So how do I verbalize this? We have folks that are going to have different opportunities in their localities. Powhatan and Hanover and maybe New Kent are going to have different opportunities. Some of them are going to be limited more than, say, maybe the city. And what I've noticed sometimes is when we're talking about affordable housing and someone comes to the Hanover board or to the Powhatan board or whatever and say, well, I don't have some of the I don't have a city block that I can offer tax abatements and those types of things. And so I think sometimes people think that folks are on a different path when I have noticed working in the region, I don't think the goal's not different. I think the path is a little different. And I think if we can kind of bring some folks together so it doesn't feel like it's contentious, because what will happen sometimes in the more rural communities is I think some of the policymakers in those areas feel like people are saying, well, you're not doing enough and you're pushing this off. And they say, well, I'm not doing that, but you need to help me find some of these opportunities, i.e. working with, Habitat for Humanity. In Hanover, rehab is going to be far more of an opportunity than new build is going to be. And it's going to be far less extensive rehab than maybe what you could do in the city. So I've noticed sometimes in some of the meetings that some of the rural counties feel a little put upon as if somebody's, I don't want to say judgmental, but they're saying, well, you're not doing this. And they say, well, I don't have that opportunity. My hope would be that PlanRVA, because we've worked so well together for so many years and many of us have relationships, and we say, hey, it's not a but an and. There could be a complement. There certainly could be some things we can all work on together, but it's going to look different in the city. It's going to look different in Chesterfield than it's going to look in New Kent, and help to, I don't want to say mediate because that would imply that folks are not in agreement, but I have found where some of the rural localities have taken some offense to some presentations that have come in where they say, the strategies that you've presented to me, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, are not applicable. I can't implement those strategies. So Martha's got a handle on that, but that would be my hope for this organization as it relates to affordable housing and those types of things, is to kind of be a conduit, is that a good term? And be able to say, hey, look, we've got a successful organization. We talk all the time. Maybe we can help identify some of the opportunities where there could be participation or solutions, although they may look different, end up with the same end result. And I hope we can play a part in that. And that's not a disparagement on the people who are bringing these presentations in, but housing affordability in localities is going to look different. There's going to be a very different look in Chesterfield than it is, Charles City or something like that. So.
I think one of the guiding principles of this effort is that while the goals may be regional, the strategies have to be local, to your very point.
I could have saved 3 minutes of talking. That's exactly.
So-
Write that down. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna use chair discretion. That's gonna become my quote now.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I appreciate, I do think that there's a role for us to play in making sure that we don't sort of cookie cutter the solutions. It is a diverse region and different things are gonna work for various reasons in different communities. I think about it a lot in the work that we've done for several years in transportation around complete streets. And that looks very, very different in the city and maybe in the town of Ashland, where it's a really dense kind of environment with a lot of different, modes of travel happening all in the same space.
Martha,
versus
what you said was good. Now you're making me look dumb.
All right, sorry. Okay. I certainly
that's a
do not
really-
want to do that, but I think it's
I think
a
it's a
similar
great
kind
point.
of thing, like it's.
And if we
different
use
than-
that, then we can show folks we have a track record of success. Here, yeah, that's great. So
Yeah.
what Martha said.
the other thing you kind of teed me up for the next bucket area, and that's that local technical assistance. We've met now with 4 of our 5 jurisdictions that we've targeted as kind of for this purpose, are small or rural localities. So we've had the chance to meet with Mrs. Page and the leadership team in New Kent County, and Mr. Byerly and the new county administrator in Powhatan County. We've also met with Mr. Carpenter in Goochland, and with Josh and his team, Josh Farrar and his team in Ashland, and are going to be meeting Mr. Cota with Ms. Johnson next week. So we're making our rounds with those jurisdictions to really kind of understand what the local priorities are and where our work might fit in to be able to support to help meet those needs. I won't go too far while she's not in the room, but I mean, affordable housing was kind of a big topic of conversation in New Kent. We've got an internal work plan meeting set up for a week from now to talk with our leadership team about what we've heard from those conversations and how we can be responsive. Just a little bit of a preview, and those of you that sat in on the meeting, I mean, please chime in, but we heard about topic areas like affordable housing, the implications of a growing senior population. We heard about the challenges that our jurisdictions, everyone is having. I think this is universal with staffing and recruitment, and what it means to be able to, number one, provide the level of service that citizens in each of the localities expect, but also to then be able to have, frankly, the bandwidth to participate in some of the regional things. Locals got to come first when it comes to some of those things. And so we had some good brainstorming about how or what PlanRVA might be able to do to be more of a resource when localities have staffing challenges. And so I think that there's a lot more to kind of explore with that.
Can I add something?
Sure.
And so not just a staffing shortage, I think, what Martha said is certainly accurate, but also on the technical side, we have planners here who love planning, right? Just like in our individual planning departments, but there may be a time where there's some technical assistance that we could provide to localities that may need something, whether it's a specific project or something that's linked to PlanRVA. As an example, in my locality, in my district, we did this roundabout a number of years ago. We got about $17 million. We kind of cut the deal that if you give us the money, we'll locally administer that. Well, we were fortunate enough to have Public Works, Public Utilities, and the Planning Department kind of work all that together. But if there's a locality that says, hey, look, my folks are taxed and doing this or that, we got planners here who love doing stuff like that. So that's a resource, that's an added benefit of kind of being, a diamond member of PlanRVA, right? Membership has its benefits. So the idea was, we have planners who love doing that. Martha has come up with a pretty good plan. We actually talked about this early on in the chairship, and I think even when Mr. Spoonhauer was chair. It would be a great opportunity. I mean, obviously, we have to get the PlanRVA stuff done first, but the PlanRVA stuff is
Your stuff.
our stuff, right? So if we have those resources and at Martha's discretion can divert those resources, not away from projects, but to help out, we just thought that might be an added benefit that localities would like, particularly if there's large projects or complex projects, because our folks have a lot of knowledge from funding and I mean, even putting the ink on paper. But I think it'll be a great resource to offer up to some of our localities. And it may not just be some of the rural localities, a Hanover or a New Kent. I mean, Chesterfield could need something, say, hey, I need this done so I can have my staff on something else. Are there any thoughts around that? I mean, I'm excited about it, but I don't want to add any influence to that. But I think it could be a resource for some of our folks. Anybody got any thoughts on that? Yes, sir.
I think it's excellent. I think it's a wonderful thing. And as you were talking, it got me to thinking about things we're doing. We're reviewing a lot of our own ordinances and stuff, like things maybe outdated. Like there's a zoning thing where you can't put certain things in, but you can have like a taxi cab station. Well, that needs to be removed, right? We don't have taxi cab stations anymore. So it would be of great benefit, I believe, to some localities if if staff would be here, would be willing to review some of those ordinances. And that frees up our staff time to do things that people are asking urgently about, not necessarily looking at past stuff. I think it'd be wonderful if PlanRVA staff members are excited to do stuff like that.
Thank you, Dr. Brewer.
And while I'm still talking, as you're talking to the local thing, something I've been contemplating for a while is if we could make a metric of globally what we want from the region done, and a certain localities willing to meet that demand. Maybe it's housing, maybe it's food inequities, maybe it's education. Then I think we should find a way to incentivize that locality to accept that demand, because sometimes we come up with these really great ideas or great things, and then someone says, but not in my backyard, not that location, not this location, and everyone loves it except for when it comes to me. So if there's some way that there then is, yes, it's coming, and we're getting something else in addition that you really want. And I don't have a solution to that. I just wanted to plant the seed and see if people run with that in some ways. And the final thing I'll make is I did consider like housing, if we could block out certain sections, like kind of like they did with broadband, they have like these blocks and they said, okay, this area is filled. And if we had these blocks and it said, this is the median income for this area. And if somebody has 100% of that median income, they should be able to live in that area, right? And there are certain areas that doesn't happen. And if we're able to do something, that's just one example. That's my one dive into the weeds.
Yeah, identification.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and-
Like the old heat map kind of theory, where you have to have identification first, and rural broadband was crucial. That was
Right.
crucial to do that, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't perfect, but at least it got the ball rolling.
Right.
And then we got better and better at it over
Yeah.
time.
No, I think that's great. Thank you, Dr. McGraw. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea and role for PlanRVA to play, and actually Martha's, and with her leadership, has provided what I consider back office and front office support, both in terms of grant writing for some entities, and with CVTA, we are providing in the interim. We haven't hired anybody yet, but so that we've assumed that role in many instances, and I think that to Dr. McGraw's point, that it would be an invaluable asset not to have to go out and hire every time, but to have that kind of an array of resources available consistent with what we're looking at strategically.
That's a great
across,
point,
you know,
yeah.
across the areas that we've identified, and maybe some others as well.
That's right. CVTA wouldn't be running if it went for PlanRVA, right?
Right.
Remind me to remind the chairman of that. At an open meeting.
Okay,
But look,
but I'm just saying.
like, where do you go for an interim? I mean, this was a place to come to.
That's been the
Right.
case in grants, and some of the areas, I think we haven't even seniors, for example, that's a whole area. I think that Martha PlanRVA uniquely positioned to provide even more guidance and direction in the region, and to mitigate against some of the challenges we hear with folks feeling like, oh, I'm being beat up because in my area I'm not whatever. I think that
Yeah, I don't have an immediate
she's
solution.
demonstrated she can more than do that.
I think it's a
in the
great point.
organization.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, we had the opportunity to meet with Martha and some of her staff. And I think basically what we did was just brainstorm, what we perceive our immediate needs to be. We have just gone through our writing of our strategic plan. So we had a lot of good feedback on our strategic plan. And now we're getting ready to go into a full review and probably almost a rewrite of our comprehensive plan. One of the things that came up was our seniors. We're renovating a historical school, and we don't have a meeting place. we don't have a gathering place. And, so with the renovation of that, it would absolutely give space, designated space to our seniors, so they'll have move chairs, set up, break it down after every meeting at a church or somewhere else, but their meeting place. The other thing, I've tried every word of the English language I can use for New Kent for housing. So now with the businesses that are coming, I have a gentleman that has land in agriculture and forestry. And so we're working together on on workforce housing.
Okay.
Which, yet again, PlanRVA has a lot of connection. So I think that for a county that wants not one more person to move in because they moved there because it was rural, then it becomes, do we have buffers and barns and that kind of stuff to sort of conceal the housing versus the 4-story apartments that are sitting right on the road. I think that is, I think that's a good approach to it as well. We have it there, but you just can't see it. And that keeps the rural characteristics of, some of our smaller, jurisdictions.
Yeah, and PlanRVA, knowing that that's the culture and the priority in New Kent, can help when they go to other meetings and they talk about those things, they can, okay, well, good.
Ms. Page makes me think about, certainly many roles I've added to Martha's listing. But when you're talking about the seniors in schools, and so in my district, we have 3 schools that have been converted into senior and residences for seniors and persons with disabilities. And I'm sure across the region, we probably have others. That would be a great opportunity if you have the inventory to take a look at some of the options.
Well,
And even some of the possible developers on any number of things.
yeah, we, because all of our schools are full. And this is a historic school.
Yeah, these are schools that were taken offline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We only have one.
Okay.
And so with that one, we plan to put in Parks and Rec to run it. And we don't have meeting space. We don't have IT space, and seniors is near and dear to my heart. And so we do have Head Start that'll be located in there. So those 2 age groups can come together. And so we decided to make it a community center because we really don't have a community center in New Kent either, so. And then when it's finished, we can host a meeting there for PlanRVA.
Put that on the calendar,
You
so
get a tour.
we'd love it.
Yeah.
Mr. Vice Chairman, any
Yeah,
thoughts?
I'm sitting here listening to Ms. Page and her comments, and I'm sitting here thinking, that sounds exactly like Powhatan. The struggles that we go through and the challenges that we have in trying to get people to sort of turn that page, because there's very much that close the door and nobody else comes in. And that's a really unfortunate set of circumstances.
Yeah, because it moved there 10 years ago.
I moved into Powhatan County, I was a kid, my parents brought me there. I just think back of all the changes, 60 was a 2-lane road, it's now 4-lane highway that goes through the county. And had we closed the door when we came to Powhatan in 1963, what would Powhatan be today? Wouldn't have that. And the businesses that have come and the growth and the changes, which are all constant. And that's the positives that they like. And then when they get there, they don't want any more stuff. It's just like the affordable housing thing, that's like an evil word. And there's different ways, I think, as the chairman and Martha was sharing, we have this situation, but we have different demographics of which, how do we navigate to get to this place? personally, thank you very much for coming to the county, to Palatine, and talking with us. And I think that's a huge step forward. I hope it continues. I even hope it gets to sort of the place where you come as a meeting, a supervisor's meeting, and bring it out so the public can hear the conversation and be more aware. I think that the support that's being offered, that's a tremendous asset to, I know the small localities, we could definitely use that without any doubt, to reach out and ask for assistance, because in Palatine, we don't even have a planning director right now. So we have an interim gentleman in helping us out, and there's things that are going on that we need some help on. And to reach out and know that this resource is here is very valuable from every way that I look at it. But I'm just glad we do that you guys have taken a role. And I think Martha, that's kudos to you for pushing that along and making it happen.
Well, I'll just say, one thing that I thought was really kind of exciting, and it's not the biggest lift, quite honestly, but one thing that came out of that conversation with you and Brett Jardine was about the idea from a recruitment perspective. Could we create and could we help amplify when you have open positions? If somebody's looking for a job in the region, they may not think to look on the Powhatan County website. And so how could we think about, from a recruitment perspective, like if somebody's interested in planning somewhere in the Central Virginia area, how could we help with that? And that was like it sounds probably really silly that was such a big aha for me, but that was something that I thought, oh wow, that's actually something that we could easily move on, low cost kind of thing. But if that could help create better awareness of those job opportunities and things like that, we've got to think through the mechanics and work with your team on that. But I think that could be something that would benefit all 9 localities, not just
everybody.
Smaller communities.
Right.
So there were just a lot of really great nuggets from each of the meeting about how we could do large scale help with a new plan or a new something, a component of the comp plan or that kind of a thing, but then also some more administrative things that I think could be really valuable.
So just with that one, I don't want to get into all of the micro level, but just populating our site with all of the positions across the 9 jurisdictions.
Right.
That then they know they can come to PlanRVA if you're looking for, I know that's way down.
Yeah, no, but I think the concept,
that could be.
And the concept is exciting to replicate, because that clearinghouse kind of role that we could potentially play could not only be clearinghouse of information that your jurisdictions are trying to get out, but from a federal funding perspective, we've been working on creating kind of an inventory of the new federal opportunities that are out there, and how can we be a kind of a clearinghouse, not that everybody has to go through us, but a resource to be able to have information. So if you're looking for a grant that does X, Y, and Z, we could kind of tick through the list. And my hope is that next month's meeting we'll be able to have a staff presentation about what the work is that we've been doing to analyze these opportunities as they're coming forward, and how can we be more prepared and poised to pursue some of these grant opportunities at the federal level when they drop. We all have been seeing the headlines and reading about the significant investment through the infrastructure bill, and those invitations to apply are starting to come down the line. And so how do we make sure that the region, the localities, different projects that are already on your wish list are ready, to be able to go forward?
Well, that was kind of my hope. So when you've got folks that have these projects on their wish list and funding becomes available, and not that your planning director would do that, but if you've got a vacancy or somebody who quite frankly doesn't have the expertise or maybe even the capacity because of workload or whatever, this could be an easy outsource to say, hey, could you help me with the initial stages or whatever? And that'd be a huge benefit. Can you imagine pulling through, getting a grant or something, as Dr. Newell talked about, and PlanRVA helped do that? I really think that gives an opportunity to say this is a member benefit. It sounds like there's wide support for that. All right, well, thank you. All right.
I think the last thing you asked me to touch on just briefly is the Title VI compliance training, public engagement and outreach. So Title VI is a section of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It's a cross-cutting federal requirement, so it is applicable to any program that we operate or that frankly your jurisdictions operate that has federal funds attached to it. So it's not an elective pursuit, it's a requirement for all of us because we all receive federal funds in some way, shape, or form. And so because of the resources that we have available through our federal transportation planning, where Title VI has become not only a requirement, but kind of a philosophical priority area when we think about equitable transportation planning. I think we've got a unique opportunity to not only hone our internal pursuits to assure compliance, but also to provide that as a resource to your jurisdiction. So we've been brainstorming different ways. We've got an award-winning, commended from the Federal Highway Administration Title VI plan here at PlanRVA. We actually just this week were notified that Federal Highway is going to be doing a research project on best practices across the country for Title VI. So we're hoping that we will be a good test case for that. But we've been just having kind of brainstorming conversations about what could we do to work with your staff to be able to bring training and other opportunities like that, so that when all of us are audited, we're not only meeting requirements, but we're able to demonstrate back to the general public that this is an area where we're really, meeting not just the letter but the spirit, I think, of the law. And so that's something that I think still very much is in brainstorm mode for me right now, but just thinking about that and trying to leverage the reality that we all face from a compliance perspective, and how can we kind of be, I guess, like a blue ribbon community when it comes to that particular.
Yeah, and I just want to re-emphasize what Martha said. I mean, obviously, there's certain compliance components to it, and we have to check those boxes. But we don't want this to be just a training program that somebody came and said. We want it to help the localities and all those who are participating in any of the training to understand not only the letter, but as Martha said, the spirit. And I think that PlanRVA is uniquely poised to kind of help with some of those things. So it's not just, I knocked off my OSHA checklist, right? That's not what this is designed to do. It's not only designed to make sure you meet the requirements, but also give some really, strong training and basis for that training in what the intent of the compliance directives were. So we want to be a resource on both of those fronts, not just going out and knocking out an annual training program.
I think PlanRVA is uniquely positioned to make sure that is foundational to all our work. So and everything is to blue ribbon, because if you have that as the foundation, everything else just goes up.
And I'll just give one kind of really specific example, but, and I'm by no means an expert on this. We have other people on staff that have done a lot more exploration and research, but, I think it's fair to say that the internet, our websites are a primary place that a lot of people in the community go to get information. It's certainly where we rely on putting a lot of information that's available, but through Title VI compliance and the Americans with Disabilities Act, there are requirements now that if you have a deliverable, a document, let's say that comes from, is originated through the investment of federal funding, that document must be made available in an ADA compliant mechanism digitally. Well, that's not posting a PDF on the website. The requirement is that the material that we post online has to be through artificial intelligence or other tools, for someone who is visually impaired, that reading that PDF may not be their primary way to consume information. It has to be converted. It has to be convertible into an audio reader. And so there's a lot that kind of goes into that from a technical aspect, as you can imagine, to make sure that captions and pictures, and we've moved to try to make less wordy documents and more image documents. Well, with that comes this requirement to make sure that there's a way for that person to click the button, and that's, that picture, that image, that graphic, you know, whatever, that chart can be described verbally. And so that's something that I think all of our organizations face, and how do you design material that can be translatable, not just in language, but in other format. And so, I mean, I don't wanna like, again, sorry, go too
No,
deep,
but that-
but I mean, that's just,
that
I
is
mean, that's
something-
a,
when
like a
you're doing-
just really tangible
When you're
example.
doing your comp plan, right, and if you have a component somewhere in your comp plan, and it just touches on something that federal funding, and if you've got a transportation section in your comp plan, guess what? You just met the requirement, right? So comp plans are filled with, strategic plans are filled with all types of things. That's something that a locality who's right in the midst of, say, working on the comp plan, working on the budget, and other constituent issues that they're working on, says, oh my gracious, I've got to get this document out. PlanRVA is a resource, says, we can help with that. We can show you, you know, how you can make sure that not only that you're ADA compliant, but that you're effectively communicating with your constituents in the way that you originally intended, right? And make sure that you're able to meet your goal without you having to go to your planning director or staff and say, hey, I need you to go research how we do this. You're gonna have a problem with that because they're already taxed. So you call up PlanRVA and make that happen. We hope that, again, member benefit, and it not only serves the locality and the policymakers, but it serves your constituents at a level that we know everybody wants to serve their constituents at. So we're happy to offer that up and kind of excited about that. And I commend the commission for taking action on that, and for Martha bringing that up to us. All right, anything else? All right,
Just
great.
as ideas come, I mean, we're working today was sort of to just throw things out. Next month, we'll come with a little bit more of a description of how we think from a, as I said, staffing and capacity perspective. We feel like what we can accomplish, and I think we're gonna have some recommendations or ideas to pitch to you about staffing, but also maybe like the idea of subcontracted services or ways that we might be able to hold retainers for some of this more specialized support. So more to come, but we'll be working over the next 3 meetings to bring this into a formal plan.
Anything else? Okay. It's 8:59, Ms. Firestone, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Please end it.
How about you?